What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Best Family Homestead. So we had finished our raised beds a little bit ago, if you remember, and now we've got to get going on making them where I can plant stuff in them. We're going to use a method. We're going to use a method called Hugelkultur, and all Hugelkultur is a traditional method of making mounded beds, raised beds up by using wood and then putting dirt and compost on top of that wood. And what's going to happen is that wood is going to rot and basically create a compost and turn into good dirt. So while we'll start out with wood and we're going to have some red clay and then just have a top layer of good dirt, as time goes by, the wood rots, the level drops, I add more dirt, I'm going to end up with a full bed of really nice dirt for growing vegetables, flowers, whatever I want to grow. So the first thing we're going to do, because the way I made this bed, you can see there's gaps in it. It'd probably be fine, but we're going to take landscape fabric, which allows water to go through it, and we're going to line the inside of our bed with the landscape fabric. Now I'm not sure. I think that this will help keep the sides of our raised bed from rotting as quickly. It's still going to rot eventually, not a big deal. We'll replace it or just have a mound. There's a lot of benefits to Hugelkultur. One, you get the composting nature of the wood rotting and the minerals. Also, it allows you to build a raised bed, which you can it makes it easier to get to. You don't have to be down on your hands and knees. Much easier to control weeds in a raised bed. Per square foot, you can grow a whole lot more and produce a whole lot more per square foot from a raised bed than you can from a garden or a flower bed that's in the ground. Plus, you don't have to till. Tilling's not really good for your soil, for the ground. So you don't have to till anything up either. So to start with, let's go ahead and get our, and water control is much easier because the wood, for one, retains moisture, and you can just run one drip hose and water your whole bed. You don't have to spend nearly as much water. It looks like we may not be out here too awful long. We have a thunderstorm blowing in. We need a little bit of rain, so we better get started. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put our fabric, line our raised bed with our fabric, and then we'll get started with the rest of it. Okay, so got our landscape fabric in just to make sure it's all contained. You can see I put a few staples in it, not a lot. I mean, it's getting filled up from the inside, so it's going to have pressure against it. So there's no reason to go overboard on the staples. So now for the really not fun part, the wood. All right, so with Hugelkultur, kind of, there's a lot of varying different advice and philosophies on it. You know, don't use this wood, do use that wood. The biggest thing is use the wood you got lying around. It really isn't beneficial if you have to spend a lot of money on special wood. So for me, I'm gonna be using a lot of pine. There's poplar, pecan, there's gonna be some oak. The only real thing you don't want to use black walnut, because the walnut has a lot of acid in it. If you notice, under a walnut tree, not much grows. Not recommended for that. You also really don't want to use like black locust or any kind of wood that is extremely rot resistant. Cedar, because we actually want this wood to rot. That's the whole point, to compost and make dirt further down in our bed. Willow is another one that's not necessarily great to use, and that's because it will sprout even underground and come back up and start growing. We don't want anything growing down in our bed. But other than that, you just want to use the wood that you have laying around. All right, so you can see I went over there and got most of it, but I needed to get the bigger stuff. You want to put the big stuff down in the bottom. It's going to rot a little bit slower, so it's going to give nutrients down at the bottom as it rots, longevity nutrients. It's going to rot slower. Also, we don't want to leave a lot of huge gaps in here. And it really won't matter if you do, but what's going to happen is it's going to rot, and you're going to have to add a whole lot more soil in future years. We don't want to have to add 5 inches every year. Ideally, we want to add 2 or 3 inches of fresh topsoil, so that this turns into a bed of complete good dirt. So that's why I started with my big stuff. I'm going to cut a little bit smaller stuff down to fill in these gaps. That's also going to keep me from having to use less dirt. As it fills up, it's not going to go down in the crack. So that's why you see me get the bigger stuff first. said it. A thunderstorm never fails. As soon as I really get on a roll, it starts to rain. But you can see these need to go into the ground very, very soon. So we'll keep working a little bit in the rain. Hopefully it'll just blow over. Well, we need the rain, but double-edged sword, I guess. Hopefully it'll blow over, let me finish, and then come back. All right, so we've got our wood in for our Hugelkultur. Pretty much about the level I want. Got some gaps over here, a few gaps, but not a big deal. To fill in those gaps initially before I really start with the dirt, I'm gonna come over here because this is a lot of sawdust and little scraps that should filter down in those small spots. Needs cleaned up anyway. So we're gonna switch over to the bucket and come get a lot of this stuff. That'll be perfect for our next layer. That's a lot of wood in our beds. But that top layer, you know, goes from big to then the bark and little pieces, and this is actually pretty decent. It's been sitting out in the weather for a while, so it's not going to take long for the last of that bark and garbage to decompose. And so now our next step is going to be something that you may or may not do, you know, depending on what you have around. Since I have a lot more red clay, and see, I still have 13, 14 inches. There's still a lot of dirt to go in there. And I've got a huge pile of red clay from where my shop was built years and years and years ago. So I'm gonna start putting red clay in this. First, on this, before the red clay, I'm going to put chicken manure, straight chicken manure. Now that is not something that you would really want to do if you already had good dirt. But seeing how as there's lots of wood in here that needs to rot, the nitrogen in the chicken poop is going to help decompose all the wood, and by the time that soil turns up to the top, the nitrogen will mostly be gone, zapped out by helping do the convert the wood, or by the wood rotting, is going to absorb the nitrogen. So we'll use that and some hay and chips and such out of the all the different animal feeders, and then red clay, and then we are going to probably end up going to buy a yard or two of just topsoil, because I'm going to have enough nutrients in it, but I'm going to need 3 or 4 inches, you know, of good topsoil on top of that red clay, and I think it's going to work out pretty good. Kind of a little experiment for me. It's not exactly any method I've ever really read before, but it is what I have, so it's what I'm going to use, what I'm going to try. So now I'm going to have to put copper inside. As you see, he's a little too friendly with the tractor, and just make a lot of trips back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, dumping buckets of red clay and chicken manure and goat poop and whatnot, and getting this thing filled back up and ready for the final level of topsoil. And in typical fashion, being in the country, something that hasn't been used a lot, I found our wasper's nest. The dang thing stung the crap out of me. All right, go find some spray. Listen to the skin right there. I hate waspers. right, now this you saw me getting, this is all straight chicken poo out from under where they roost at night. A good bit of it, probably hadn't cleaned that out in a minute. So this will give us the rest of it. And you notice, so I'm not worrying about these weeds and stuff. One, these are going to be buried by more dirt, and two, I'm going to put landscape fabric on the top just to make sure that none of the weeds that's in some of this stuff I'm putting in here comes off the roof. All right, all that dirt, which is actually chicken manure, that's just composted down. You can see the goat poop, chicken poop. That represents a whole lot of nitrogen. Unless you're doing something like I'm doing and plan on doing hugelkultur, I would not recommend just taking that much straight chicken poop and goat poop and just putting it right on top of your soil, unless you're really going to till it in and your soil is pretty bad. You will burn, the nitrogen will actually burn your plants. Now I did it on purpose because there's soil going on top of that. And really that stuff that I'm putting in there right now, it's not to benefit the plants that I'm planting right now. It's to break down the wood into compost and benefit my plants and benefit the plants years down the road. So that's why I did it the way I did. Now we've been really dry down here in South Georgia. Really dry. And so what I'm going to do, and this will do two things. One, it's going to help push a lot of chicken manure and nitrogen down into the wood that I want to rot. But I'm also wetting this down to get the wood, the big piece of the wood that's in there wet. Basically, you know, the wood will soak up the moisture like a sponge. And once I get the next layers of dirt on, it's going to hold the water a whole lot. You know, it's going to hold a whole lot more water than just the dirt if it was full of dirt. So I'm going to take a few minutes and really wet this good. Get all that nitrogen down in there to start composting all that wood. Get the wood nice and wet. And then we're going to start filling it up. All right, first bucket. I actually filled up a little bit more than I thought. So this, we'll put a little bit more over here. But we want to get, my goal is to get this dirt, and you can see it's not horrible dirt. It is mostly red clay, but we're going to fill it up about that level with the clay all the way across. And then we're going to put good topsoil all the way up to the top. All the way up to the top. And we're also going to mix in some hay, where I keep the hay for the goats. You know, it falls apart. Been there for a long time, and I've left it. I just keep stacking fresh hay on pellets when I go buy hay. But we're going to put that before the dirt. It's got a little bit of goat poop and stuff in it too, where they inevitably get out. So now it's just going to be over and over, back and forth, doing some raking, getting any organic undesirables out. But yeah, we're like these weeds and stuff, that's why I'm going to put landscape fabric on top right before I plant. So now it's just going to be back and forth. All right, so we got to start here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my rake. I'm gonna level this out That way we're going to be able to see about where we are and how much more dirt of different types we need. Well, it's getting there. So you can see I've got 2-3 inches here on top left that I'm gonna go get either topsoil or potting soil. Now up to this point, I'm into this whole project for maybe $30 in screws and $20 in landscape fabric. So about $50. Not bad. I'll take it. Also, I had somebody ask me because I didn't sink my posts, my uprights, like, aren't you worried about it, you know, bulging and flying apart? If you had done this same project, say using 1x4s or 1x6s from Lowe's or Home Depot, yeah, you might have an issue. But seeing as most of the sides of this are anywhere between probably the thinnest, up to 4 inches, you're not going to, there's no worries about bending or bowing any of these pieces, so that's not even a concern. All right, let's see what I've done here. Went and got some hay. Now this hay, if you get down in it, is mostly rotted. Like, it is really close to turning to dirt, or already has turned to dirt. So it'll be pretty safe to put in here. Plus it's got a lot of minerals and stuff where there you can see where it's, you know, it's not real fresh hay. You don't want to put like fresh hay right in top of a garden, really. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to wet it down, and that'll let me pack it down a little bit, and then we're going to go get our final bucket of the topsoil. And because I'm using this hay and because our soil didn't look as bad as I thought, I'm not going to spend money on going to get, you know, any really expensive potting soil, because this is going to do the job. Don't take that for gospel. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think I am. We'll find out soon enough. I think this is going to work really well. The only thing I'm going to do is get some of the cow manure compost, and that will be planted just where I plant my in the hole with the plants. And then we'll put our drip hose, and then the last little bit of sawdust I have, we'll put our landscape fabric, especially now I do have some hay in here, and then landscape, you know, keep the weeds coming up, and then our last little bit of our mulch. And I think it's going to grow some killer vegetables and flowers. So I'm going to finish watering this in, go get some more dirt, put dirt on it, level it out, and we will have our plants from Yaya in the ground by tonight, thank goodness, because they are not looking too good. there it is. Now it looks like red clay. I didn't go get the dirt, you know, like I got saying a few times. I think the biggest problem I might have, my plants are going to get huge, but my fruits and vegetables might not. I might have this a little bit too hot. You can't get too much fertilizer. At least everything in there is all natural, and as it composts and I keep adding more to it, I'll be able to equalize it, see how it goes. So now, after all this work, we finally get to start on the fun part. So we're gonna put our landscape fabric down. I've got to go get some of the cow manure, just because those plants are a little bit stressed, so I want to put them in some really good dirt, and some mulch. Turn the drip hose on, and hopefully I mean, it's really late, but here in South Georgia, honestly, I can start a second garden if I wanted to in September and August, September, and still get plenty of vegetables up through December. We usually don't have any kind of hard freeze or frost till January, so we have 2 full growing seasons. Well, let's go get our cow manure so we can get started on getting our plants in the ground.